Our next speaker is Nimai Das. He is a member of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and is a board member for the ISKCON of Delaware chapter. He and his wife, Navali, have been hosting a weekly mantra meditation program out of their home in Milton, Delaware for the past 5 years, and they also assist with the weekly Sunday program at the ISKCON Temple in Bear, Delaware. Nimai has brought Kirtan outreach programs to a variety of locations and yoga studios in Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New York. He's been teaching at a public middle school for the past 14 years and lives with his wife, his 11-year-old stepson, Ryder, and their cat, Lila. I've been to Krishna Village several times and have enjoyed listening to Nimai and the others lead group discussions on Vedic philosophy and how ancient wisdom can enrich our modern day lives. Welcome, Nimai. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody coming together to make this possible. Is my sound okay? You can hear me well?
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Um, I apologize. I wasn't able to join from the beginning. My brother got married this weekend, so a lot of family in town, a lot of things going on, but very happy to be here now. I'd like to open with a brief mantra offering my respects to the teachers that came before me. Om Magana Timrandasya Gunanjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And I have a slideshow presentation that I am going to share. And pardon the delay, here we go. So, thank you, Jill, so much for organizing this. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak something, and please forgive my shortcomings in this endeavor to share a little bit about my story and my practice with you all. So my plan for this talk is to do a quick intro to the philosophy and the practice, just in a nutshell. Talk a little bit about how I came to the practice, talk a little bit about what I love about the practice, recommend some books, and mention some frequently asked questions, and then also open for Q&A at the end. So the foundational teaching of Bhagavad Gita is our core text, and the foundational teaching is you're not the body. And building our lives around catering to the demands of the body is a recipe for frustration, and these fleeting pleasures cannot bring lasting satisfaction. So that is a teaching that is very non-sectarian. I think practically every spiritual tradition on the planet teaches something along those lines. I did want to give a little attention to this image I have on the screen. I wanted to break down this idea you're not the body, because I feel like for most of my life I understood that academically to some degree. But even when I had no interest in spiritual life, but I wasn't like I didn't understand, okay, so what? Like, how's that going to affect the way I live my life? So we can see in this image, we're not the body, we're a spirit soul. We are in the vehicle of the material body temporarily. And you may notice that this body I'm in now is nothing like my baby body. That baby body doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. Modern science says even full-grown adults, every 7 years, every cell in the body is replaced. So we can understand, I wasn't that baby body, because it doesn't exist anymore. And here I am, saying I this and me that, right? And similarly, my boy body, as a toddler, that body was different from my baby body. That body's gone too. My adolescent body, the body of my youth, the body I was in my 20s, all those bodies have come and gone. And there's still this constant. There's the spirit soul, the consciousness, the individual unit of consciousness that is animating the material body. This is really stressed in Bhagavad Gita. It's one of the first teachings in the text. Um, and so, okay, what do we do with that? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, I got a little ahead of myself. Building our life around catering to the demands of the body is that's not the ultimate purpose of life. That's not the ultimate reality. There's more going on here than like ice creams and mini golf, right? Doesn't mean ice cream and mini golf is evil. And Bhagavad Gita acknowledges I have to maintain the body. I've been given this gift of the material body, and it's my responsibility to maintain the body nicely. It's one of my duties. But at the same time, if my entire life is only revolving around catering to the demands of the body, then there's something more available if we want it. We have free will. So many thinkers have noticed, again, this is very non-sectarian, this idea that our eternal constitutional position is to serve. We can't escape it. As Bob Dylan said, you got to serve somebody. Every moment of every day, there's no inactivity. There's always some activity. The nature of the soul is active, and we have to be serving something. So we can choose to serve ourselves and our, material desires, or we can serve a higher purpose, a higher power. So the specially recommended service for this particular day and age, according to these ancient yoga wisdom literatures, is this hearing and chanting process. It's Shravanam Kirtanam in Sanskrit. Hearing and chanting the glories and or the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is a phrase, a term that Prabhupada coined. We're talking about the cause of all causes. There's this nice analogy in the Yoga Wisdom literatures that just as different people in different parts of the world who speak different languages are referring to the same sun in the sky by different names, in the same way, all of these traditions are pointing at the cause of all causes, who goes by infinite names. So just as we don't need to, the theme is peace and unity, I believe. Just as we don't need to, butt heads, start wars over which name we use for the sun in the sky. In the same way, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is teaching about Krishna, which is one of infinite names for the Supreme Personality, the cause of all causes. People say, which God are you talking about? We're talking about the God. So this is Bhagavad Gita sharing non-sectarian spiritual wisdom. It's one of the oldest books in the world, and it's recommending this hearing and chanting process. And we find this same practice in so many traditions, if not all traditions. And it's there's one caveat. I don't know if it's a caveat, but sometimes in some traditions, practitioners, spiritualists, seekers, they will chant to different empowered entities, universal managers. They'll, for example, if there was a drought, which the East Coast, at least the Mid Atlantic, has had a drought this year. If they were to offer prayers or mantras or some kind of worship to the controlling deity of water, rains, this kind of thing. That's considered good in that it's acknowledging a higher power. Krishna consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada taught it, is recommending specifically uh, chanting to the cause of all causes, um, the supreme controller, and not asking for material benefits. It's recommended instead that the whole purpose of Krishna consciousness is to awaken or uncover our eternal loving relationship with our divine conscious source. That is the end game of the practice. And so, anybody in any tradition in any part of the world who is offering any kind of prayer or worship to that end, please help me to serve you. Please help me to remember you. Please help me to fully experience my loving relationship with you. Um, that falls into this recommended practice by the Yoga Wisdom Literatures, the Yuga Dharma, Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. So we find with experience, this is not sentimentalism. This is a very potent practice. The Sanskrit is Chetodarpana Marjanam, that this hearing and chanting process cleanses the mirror of the heart so that I can see who I really am. I can see who God is. I can see my eternal loving relationship with that person. And once we've reached this state of self-realization and Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, then we automatically see every other living entity as part and parcel of Krishna too. All false prestige, all false sense of proprietorship, envy, these things disappear. Godly qualities manifest. We become much less likely to cuss out people in traffic, that kind of thing. Become much more patient with family members, um, bosses, coworkers, children, and sharing this message of hope of that actually there is a loving God and we do have a relationship, and it's just covered at times, just because just like sometimes we can't see the sun in the sky due to cloud cover. It doesn't mean that the sun is gone or doesn't exist. It's just temporarily covered. And this hearing and chanting is the method to uncover that relationship. And by uncovering that relationship, all of our other problems, both individual problems, collective problems, these temporary material problems associated with the temporary material body, they are all solved because we get this vision of eternity, seeing ourselves as an eternal spirit soul as opposed to the temporary material body it's a drastic paradigm shift. So the big thing is this, to kind of summarize the foundational teachings of Krishna consciousness, we need to get back in touch with our divine source. It's like we broke up with God, and there can be no real happiness or peace in our lives until we become fully aware of that relationship. So there are a number of different methods for hearing and chanting. The number one way that Hare Krishnas, our namesake, the number one way that we hear and chant or engage in this process is by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's 16 names. Krishna means all attractive. So it's a name that is identifying the cause of all causes. And Hare is the divine feminine. Hare is divine love personified. So actually, one of our secrets as Hare Krishnas is we worship the divine couple. The energy and the energetic, they're inseparable. And then, sorry, I'm getting a echo. If everyone could mute, sorry. And then Rama is the reservoir of all pleasure, and specifically real pleasure. as opposed to fleeting pleasures of, the material senses interacting with their objects. Rama implies actual pleasure,
No, I don't
experiencing
know,
that
Tony. I'm
relationship.
really disturbed that I've lost what I need.
Jill, maybe you're
Yeah, I'm
able
going to take
to.
a look
There
at
we go.
that right now.
She just muted. Thank you. So that's kind of the some of the philosophy, scratching the surface of the philosophy behind the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The nice thing is you don't have to know anything about it. It just works. And the main purpose of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness is make this available for those who are interested and want to experiment with it. If you're more comfortable with chanting names for God in that come from your tradition, in a different language, that's great. That's still again, that still falls under the Yuga Dharma, the recommended practice for this day and age by these ancient yoga wisdom literatures. But if you'd like to experiment with the Maha Mantra, everyone is welcome. There's no qualification necessary. There are no hoops to jump through. And the mantra in full is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so when we come together as a group, we like to sing and dance, and one person sings the mantra and everyone else sings it back. We go back and forth like that. It usually begins kind of slow and meditative and then builds in enthusiasm. And people take turns, like we have an 8-hour kirtan coming up next month. And so there'll be different half-hour slots where one person will lead the meditation, will lead the chanting, and they'll sing the mantra in full. Everyone else will sing it back. They'll have their time to lead, and then someone else will take their turn, and we'll go like that. So singing and dancing is called kirtan, that method. We also have devotees have a personal mantra meditation practice on beads, on a mala, strand of beads. And the strand of beads is helpful because it helps us to count our mantras, which is an insurance policy against the mind. Because the mind can say, we have a lot going on this weekend. It's really busy. Maybe we'll just skip it. um, So devotees commit to a certain number of rounds each day, and we use the beads to count those mantras without having to actually, count. And so we can have a better opportunity to focus our full attention on the mantra, and the chanting on the beads becomes, mechanical, second nature. It doesn't distract us from the hearing portion of the hearing and chanting process. Another way to engage in hearing and chanting is to hear and chant the ancient yoga wisdom literatures. That can be reading them on our own. It can be reading them in a group setting, and also discussing these topics, these teachings. What we're doing right now falls under the umbrella category of hearing and chanting. So I see two questions. I briefly mentioned the purpose of ISKCON movement, and we might come back to that and answer that more fully later. And does the Divine Mother, Divine Father carry more weight, or are they equal? They're equal. We understand that Radha Krishna is that's our understanding of who God is as a person. Our understanding of God is not that God is in a control tower somewhere sweating, trying to manage everything. It's like, no, everything's taken care of. The material world is functioning under the laws of material nature, and God is enjoying with devotees. And our conception of the personality of Godhead is the divine couple Radha Krishna. Thank you. And I'll see. There we go. Looks like the other question got taken care of. So, mantra meditation is our main practice. And hearing and chanting the wisdom literatures is also right there on equal footing with the mantra meditation. So I want to mention, how did I get into this? Because I'm not a lifelong practitioner. I was introduced 8.5 years ago. And well, I have a little brief story about it. So I experienced some traumatic losses in my youth and early 20s. I ended up turning to substance abuse. I had no clue how to deal with everything I was going through. I was in an incredibly dark place. Like, on paper, I was okay. I had a career, I had a house, car, girlfriend, but inside, I was a total wreck. And when I was 29, I got invited to a monthly kirtan outreach program at the local theater. And I was immediately blown away by the instruments and the mantras. And I didn't really know what was going on, but I could tell that this was something real and this was something powerful. So for the first couple of years, that was about it. I was going to this monthly program. I'd really be looking forward to it. I would listen to kirtan in the car. I would do a little bit of personal mantra meditation practice on beads. I wasn't really planning on becoming a Hare Krishna or what have you. I tried reading the books, but I wasn't so into it. Some of the aspects of the philosophy really spoke to me, others not so much. I should mention that I met my amazing wife at this kirtan outreach program. So seemingly independent of kirtan, a few months after I went to my first one, I got sober in a 12-step program. So no one from kirtan mentioned anything about me getting sober. It was just time for me. I couldn't live that way anymore. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I got really into this 12-step program and got involved with a lot of service commitments and had a really nice foundation for spiritual life, this combination of kirtan and getting to know some devotees, some other practitioners, and then the 12 steps, going through the 12 steps, and then becoming a sponsor, taking other people through the 12 steps. This was all working in concert. But a couple of years into my sobriety, I was at another jumping off point. It means I was going through some circumstances that were making me totally miserable all over again. I was at a crossroads. I wasn't sure which way to go. And I got this idea, those Hare Krishnas seem super blissful and the practice is super powerful. Maybe there's more there than I have even realized. Maybe I missed something in my cursory glance over the books and the philosophy. So I started driving up to the temple in Bear on Sundays and reading some more of the books. And it was like puzzle pieces snapping into place. And the thing was, when I tried looking at the philosophy the first time, I didn't have the overall context. Like Prabhupada, I've mentioned Prabhupada a couple of times. Prabhupada is the empowered, amazing teacher who brought this set of practices and philosophy to the West in the 1960s. And Prabhupada would be presenting some little piece of the philosophy, and my mind would just reject it out of hand. But eventually I started seeing the whole picture, and it became clear. And I had this realization like, oh, this actually all makes incredible sense. So I have, if I may, I'll check the Q&A real quick. Let's see. The purpose of the praying, the chanting the Maha Mantra, is to render service. It's very direct. Devotional service is very direct service to God. And we're not asking for, as you mentioned in your question, I appreciate you picking up on that. We are not asking for material benefits. We're not trying to manipulate. It's just, you've given me so much. Let me spend a little time reciprocating. Let me take a little bit of time out of my day to acknowledge all these gifts you've given me and acknowledge you, the cause of all causes, and it just, please let me be of service. Help me to be of service, like that. So I find that engaging in some reading and or mantra meditation each morning before I leave the house helps me to carry that consciousness with me throughout the day. And really, Bhagavad Gita is teaching Bhakti Yoga, which is a whole yogic system. It's a whole lifestyle. It's like, uh, it's very addictive. And there's so many facets of the practice. There's so many ways to engage in devotional service. And the essentially, bhakti is the art of spiritualizing our everyday lives. Spiritualizing cooking and eating and cleaning, and how to spiritualize our careers and our family lives, how to spiritualize everything and turn everything we do into an offering, into a service to a higher power. And it's a tricky thing. It's a subtle thing because sometimes it's easy to pay lip service and then really do whatever we want. So the ins and outs of it are going to be outside the scope of this talk. Um, but let me see. I'll come back to those other questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate your engagement and your kind attention. I want to mention a few because think I'm running low on time. What I really love about the practice, it's the only satisfying explanation I've ever heard of reality. It's the only satisfying explanation I've ever heard for the problem of evil. Like, how can there be an omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent entity and there still be so much suffering in the world? I can't answer that right now. I'm going to recommend some books. I have powerful, consistent spiritual experiences. I'm involved in this amazing community. I mentioned devotional service is very direct service, because I'm giving my most valuable resource, which is my time. It doesn't matter how much money you get, you can't buy another second. And these other material bodies, these other life forms, the cats and dogs aren't able to have these conversations. So this time in this human form of life is this valuable opportunity to engage in spiritual practice. I really believe that our outreach efforts are the topmost humanitarian work. And this practice has given me a profound sense of purpose and connection. And it deeply resonates like this is what I've been looking for. So, like all good Hare Krishnas, I'm going to try to get you to read our books. This first one is The Four Questions, Pathway to Inner Peace. It's very it's non-sectarian spiritual wisdom. It's very practical, it's very accessible. I highly recommend it. I'm going to share my contact information. If you I send them out on a donation basis. Anything you like. If you read it, I want you to have it. I'll ship it to you. Please feel free to contact me. I love answering questions about my life and this philosophy. So that's a good one. The Four Questions. It's a really nice introduction to Krishna consciousness. Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned, is it's our core text. This version by Ranchar Prime. Ranchar Prime is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he wrote this book actually for his children. So he strove to make it as accessible and straightforward as possible, which is nice for people like me too. And then this comprehensive guide to Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a conversation, and it flows like a conversation. So one topic will come up, and then it'll go away, and then it'll come back, and it'll go away, come back. So this commentary is organized thematically. So it's like the author, H.D. Goswami, who's also a disciple of Prabhupada, H.D. Goswami made a chapter about karma and said, okay, this is everything the Bhagavad Gita has to say about karma. And he breaks down the Bhagavad Gita like that. So it really helped me to wrap my head around this profound conversation. And then, of course, you can't go wrong with Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. There's so many versions of the Gita out there, and Prabhupada's version has the word-for-word translation. So you can see exactly how he rendered the original Sanskrit. And it's been praised by scholars all over the world for his translation method. It's this funny thing. I've read so many versions of Gita, and it's almost comical how wildly different they can be. So this version, I highly recommend. It's authentic. Prabhupada wasn't some upstart that invented his own religion. He instead is in a long chain of teachers, student disciple relationship, and so he has insights that someone who's just studying this text as a scholar won't have. In the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which there's these four texts, 10:8 through 10:11, are considered the summary of the whole Gita, and Krishna shares that one who renders service, he gives the understanding by which we can come. It's through devotional service only that we can uncover that eternal relationship. And devotional service, again, is non-sectarian. I'm not saying you have to have the trappings of Krishna Bhakti. Again, this is very broad-minded stuff. It's not tribal monotheism. My God can beat up your God. This is much more universal understanding. I also recommend this Wisdom of the Sages podcast. There's a nice online community surrounding that podcast program. And also, I highly recommend Bhakti Community. It's organized by the author of the Four Questions, who is my direct Diksha guru. And so I can't say enough good things about his programming. They have some in-person stuff in the Bay Area in California. We have in-person stuff in Delaware. But if you're not in Delaware or California, they have all these online programs as well. So I think I'm about out of time. Ran out of time for the FAQ. Let me peek. There's a lot of stuff in the question box. The first book was the Four Questions. Yes. And I'm going to share my contact information in just a moment. Do I use mudra while chanting? Yes, we hold the beads with the thumb and the third finger, and that is a mudra. It is nice to do some pranayam in preparation for the japa, the personal mantra meditation, but it's not required, but recommended. The teachings do include reincarnation. That is a part of the philosophy. But the soul is eternal. We are eternal individuals. Mama Vamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana is from the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna is sharing that we are eternally part and parcel. So that's the big question. The big question is, sometimes this is referred to, finish up with this, sometimes this is referred to as the science of self-realization, because it's kind of a startling realization that I don't know who I am. If I'm not this body, if I'm not any of the characteristics associated with this temporary material body, then what's left? What does it mean to be an eternal spirit soul? So that's what we're getting at. And yes, we believe that Krishna answers prayers. Yes, we believe that empowered teachers are sent to deliver this message of hope. And I've had so many potent spiritual experiences through this practice. And the big thing is, for me, is Prabhupada accomplished superhuman feats. I mean, he was, from my studies of him, he was divinely empowered. He came to the US, he was 69 years old. Over the course of the next 12 years, he opened 100 centers, he published 70 books, he trained up thousands of students, and create a worldwide movement. And the potency of a teacher is in their disciples, right? So, of course, not every person that took initiation from Prabhupada was able to stay the course and, become a living saint, but a a lot of people. There are some very impressive individuals in this movement. Some of these men and women are unlike anybody I've ever met. Their connection to source is palpable. And the thing is, you can't fake steadiness. I might be able to fake something for a few weeks or even a month, maybe even a year, but to have these really strict, serious practices and do incredible amounts of service for decades on end, that really gets my attention. So I I I'm sold. In a short talk, it's hard to convey everything I want to convey. Um, and the information about the divine couple, that is more, there's more information about that in the exciting sequel to Bhagavad Gita, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. And I understand that last year's webinar, my friend, he presented on Srimad Bhagavatam. So I also have like the first 8 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. I have that text available too. But that's where the detailed information about the philosophy is. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is there. Radha is not there on the battlefield with Krishna, so he is revealing himself as the Supreme Personality Godhead, but just because Radharani wasn't there at that moment doesn't take away from her position or our understanding of her position. So I hope that answers that. And Jill, how are we doing? Should I try to answer these questions or should I wrap up?
Looks like there's a good one, and then one more question about the book.
Okay. So I have read discussion of Brahman in the Upanishads. Maheshvar. Okay, so those are the 3 controlling deities of the material world. And this gets really technical. And this information can be found in the first few chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. But Srimad Bhagavatam's the postgraduate study. It's recommended to read Bhagavad Gita first. So these details about the controlling deities of the 3 modes of material nature, that gets really technical. And the Upanishads are interesting texts. Most of the translators of the Upanishads tend to focus on the impersonal aspect of the Supreme. So Srila Prabhupada certainly acknowledges the impersonal aspect of the Supreme, but we don't focus on the impersonal aspect of the Supreme to the exclusion of other aspects of the Supreme. So the 3 primary aspects of the Supreme, according to the Vedic version, are Brahman, which is the impersonal, the divine effulgence, which is emanating from the Supreme Person. And the Upanishads speak a lot about that aspect of the Supreme. Some of the Upanishads. East Upanishad is all about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, which is the first Upanishad. And there's a nice, Srila Prabhupada did a nice translation commentary on East Upanishad, and I have that available too. I'm not a book salesman, believe it or not. I'm a middle school teacher. But the 3 primary aspects are Brahman, which is the impersonal effulgence, and Paramatma, which is the localized, the divine spark in every person. There's actually 2 souls in every body. There's super soul, God sitting in the heart as Chaitya Guru, and then the individual soul. The Svetasvatara Upanishad actually makes the analogy of it's like 2 birds sitting in a tree branch. And I could explain further, but we're out of time. So Paramatma is the localized aspect of the Supreme, and Bhagavan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, yes, there's a very good question. The answer gets very technical. I hope that overview was okay. And Srila Prabhupada is the man that I mentioned. There's a nice movie about him. I think it's called the mantra and the man who started it all. I think the movie's called Hare Krishna. I can find it and share it out. And yes, the name of the book. Well, I mentioned many books, so I'm not sure which book. But the Four Questions was the book that I mentioned first, and then I mentioned a few different versions of Bhagavad Gita, and then I mentioned Srimad Bhagavatam, and then I mentioned Isopanishad. So I invite anyone who's wants to know anything more about any of this, feel free to contact me. Anyone who'd like any books, feel free to contact me. However you like. Uh, Email or WhatsApp is or Facebook. Those are all great. You can also text or call directly on my phone number, whatever you like. Thank you so much.
Nimai, thank you so much.